Today we're going to discuss my 10 favorite POTA locations. You are not going to want to miss this one. Let's go.
Hi, my name's Mike. I'm a full-time traveler and ham radio operator. I activate amazing parks all over the United States. Join the adventure and see what's next.
Wow, do I really look like a guy with a plan?
That traveler has
I just do things.
This is a huge, beastly, bulging man. Plates were from Kansas.
Hey radio friends, I'm Mike, Kilo Echo Zero Victor India Mike. This is the Travelin Ham. I have been blessed to be able to activate parks all across the lower 48 of this country, and I decided for you today to put together a list of my 10 favorite spots that I have activated thus far. So let's get right to it. First, some honorable mentions that don't make the list. Activating both the easternmost and westernmost points in the United States. So you can go to Quoddy Head State Park in Maine, and you can go to a particular spot in Acadia National Park in Washington, and you will activate not only the easternmost and the westernmost parks, but they are in fact the eastern and westernmost points of the lower 48, the contiguous United States. And being able to do both of those was really, really cool. And they kind of tie in to my next honorable mentions, which is anything to do with American landmarks. Activating things like Golden Gate National Recreation Area right by the Golden Gate Bridge, in view of the Golden Gate Bridge, was very cool. The St. Louis Arch, Mount St. Helens. I tried to get close to the Statue of Liberty. I didn't have my true portable setup at the time, so I couldn't move very far away from the truck, and that really limited me. But I love collecting video and pictures of activation spots next to something like that's that famous. A couple other honorable mentions, just because of they're so photogenic, is White Sands National Park and Canyonlands National Park. And not prominent within the national park system. They don't make a whole lot of bucket lists, but man, do they show up well in photographs. They're both very large scale spaces that just totally fill up the frame, and boy, just look fantastic. Grand Teton National Park, I would say similar things about it. Those photos don't have the grand scale like some of these other parks do that I mentioned, but still just absolutely fabulous. Those mountains have 6,000 feet of prominence. Is just absolutely gorgeous. So there you go. There's the honorable mentions. Let's get right into the top 10, and these are in order. My favorite will be number 1. Let's start at number 10. The historic Marconi Station site in Cape Cod National Seashore, and since I've learned has been added the Marconi Wildlife Management Area. So that station is now a twofer, but that was the spot of my first CW activation and was my motivation for doing it there at that time. I didn't think I was ready. I wasn't ready to start activating yet, but once I realized that I was, within close proximity of this site while we were driving up Cape Cod, I thought, yeah, I just got to do this here. I just absolutely have to. I can't pass up this spot and not get my first CW activation here. And it went fine. It went great. The hunters were fantastic. And I even got to see, at least evidence of some humpback whales before the activation. So that one was very, very cool at the historic Marconi Station site, Cape Cod National Seashore, and the Marconi Wildlife Management Area. That's number 10. Number 9 is Geisler Summit in Colorado, near the town of Aspen. I went up it with my daughter Samantha. We were training for our Grand Canyon adventure, and this is by far my best true summit experience, going up to 13,300 feet, I think that summit is. And when you get up there, it's just solid mountain peaks in every direction. It was just absolutely gorgeous. It was a great time. It was a lot of work. It took us all day. It was a blast. Number 8, Lower Falls on the Yellowstone River in Yellowstone National Park. This one's kind of a mixed bag here. there's a number of different spots where you can get a view of the lower falls of the Yellowstone, and all of them are absolutely spectacular. And this was one I just had to get done. I had to get it on my channel, but I don't recommend the actual spot that I picked and where I got to. I'd watched someone else's video, and it looked like they just left the trail that was kind of switchbacking down a hill. They left the trail at one of the switchbacks, and it looked like it was on solid rock, so you're not really wearing anything. And you know, I could just hop up on the solid rock there and activate from that spot, be out of the way, have a view of the falls, and run my activation. In reality, when I got there, you know, hindsight 2020, I should have just left, but I didn't quite realize the precarious situation I was in. It was on a pretty good slope, and the surface was actually kind of loose rock. So I'm up there for probably 45 minutes to an hour in a sort of precarious situation, trying to set up my station. And afterwards, when I left and hiked down the hill to get a better look at the falls down the boardwalk steps, and I turned around and looked back at where I was up above me, I thought, my gosh, I had no business going up there. I probably could have gotten in trouble for being there. So, you know, always keep your wits about you when you're picking these spots. And you know, we get in this mode of success versus failure. We don't want to accept that failure, but sometimes you just gotta turn around. I recommend, you know, going and seeing that spot, seeing if you can figure out a safe spot to activate with a view of lower falls of the Yellowstone. Number 7, still in Yellowstone, kind of a combination of two spots. I activated by White Dome Geyser in 2021, and again at Lone Star Geyser in 2024. And what's cool about activating next to a geyser, you know, they're not all like Old Faithful where they're on this time schedule and they go off every hour and hour and a half. Some of them are really random, some of them are fairly regular, but it's more like 3 hours, you know, that they might go off. That was the case with Lone Star. So let's say you want to go see Lone Star and you hike a couple miles out there. You need to hike a couple miles back. You've probably got other stuff in the park you're wanting to do. You're not going to give yourself a whole lot of time to sit there by the geyser and wait for it to erupt. The nice thing about POTA is you're planning on going there and spending a little bit of time. And in my case, I had all day if I needed to. I could hike out there, and this one goes off about every 3 hours. I could wait the full amount of time if I had to. Thankfully, it went off pretty soon after I sat down and started activating. But a very cool way to activate in Yellowstone National Park, whenever you're seeing the park in general, just seeing a geyser like that go off is a real treat when they're not on some sort of regular schedule that you can plan for and position yourself to see like you can Old Faithful. That's kind of the game when you go visit Yellowstone. You're going to see the geysers, is seeing which ones you can see go off, and that'll be your bragging point. Hey, I saw the Beehive geyser go off. Or if you're real lucky, I saw Steamboat geyser go off. So that's number 7. Number 6, Sky Pond at Rocky Mountain National Park. This whole experience was fantastic. The whole family had a good time, although my son had a little trouble with the altitude, but he toughed it out pretty well. But that spot up at the top was fantastic. Just the hiking experience itself was really cool. There's one spot you have to climb up a waterfall to get up to the level of the Lake of Glass, and the challenge of trying to get a signal out of that little valley in preparation of the Grand Canyon expedition was really cool. Just an overall great experience, and it was gorgeous to boot. So that's number 6, Sky Pond at Rocky Mountain National Park. Number 5, now we're moving into the absolutely incredible spots. Number 5 is Goosenecks State Park in Utah. Now we are in extreme southern Utah, just north of Monument Valley, and what a cool spot. And you can actually camp here, and that's what we did. We paid $20 for dry camping, $20 a night, and we can park the RV right on the edge of the canyon. I think by the time I had the slides out, I had about 15 feet of space between the edge of the slide and the edge of the canyon, and that's where I set up my table to operate, and got to sit there and operate radio for a few hours. Very cool experience, gorgeous site, highly unique that you could park your trailer in that kind of situation, or whatever your camping apparatus is. You can set up a tent there just as easily. Very cool experience. If you're ever in that area going to see Monument Valley, geology in that entire area is really, really cool, and Gooseneck State Park is no exception. Number 4 was my activation just this year in Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest. Just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? So we're in Northwest Washington, immediately adjacent to North Cascades National Park. My view is actually of Mount Shuksan back into, which is inside of North Cascades National Park, but my activation location is in Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest. And what a fantastic spot. Just another one that totally filled up the frame. Absolutely gorgeous. I call it my Bob Ross POTA. Absolutely stunning. Just a treat to be able to sit there for a couple hours and talk to some of you fine people. So that's number 4, Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest. Number 3 was my activation of Delicate Arch in Arches National Park. And this one is cool for a number of reasons. When you come around that corner and see the arch, it is an absolutely stunning view. I recommend, just for sun angles, to do in the evening, because when you come out from around the corner, when you've been hiking up this trail, this thing is totally hidden from view the entire time. And when you come around that corner, it just smacks you right in the face. If it's springtime, there will be snowy mountains off in the distance behind the arch, and the sun is coming from behind you in the evening and lighting up the arch. It is absolutely gorgeous. That's one reason to go there. The topography in the area is super cool and just fun to kind of climb around and mess around on. And this is also cool for me because it was what hooked me in the idea of throwing my gear in a pack, hiking up and activating a park from a special spot. Not just doing it where it's convenient to get to by my truck, it's in a parking lot, or somewhere I can pull up close to a picnic table, but actually hiking out to a really cool landmark and running my activation from a spot like that just really rekindled my interest in POTA, and it's really what has been kept me going and putting so much effort into this for that period of time. Otherwise, I think I probably would have gotten bored of parking lots after a while, even going to these different places. But getting to a spot like that within the park is really what interests me and keeps me going in Parks on the Air. If you're ever visiting Arches and you can make this climb, it's 1.5 miles and it climbs 500 feet. It does take some effort, but boy, is the result worth it in the end. So that's number 3, Delicate Arch, Arches National Park. Number 2 was my activation of Zion National Park on top of Angel's Landing. This kind of almost goes into the American landmarks category as well, but only for people that are real crazed outdoorsy types that like to do the crazy hikes. Maybe you're mountain climbers or something like that. Those are the people that know about Angel's Landing. Just a legendary, iconic spot to run an activation. So this activation was also cool because it took a decent amount of effort just to figure out how in the world I would set up my station on top of this precarious land feature. At the top there, on the top of Angel's Landing, you only have about 8 or 10 feet of width to feel like you can safely walk along the top there. So going up there and occupying even a reasonably normal amount of room for an HF activation is just out of the question. You've got to be almost invisible up there to be able to not be in other people's way. So I was watching other hiking videos to try and figure this out, and watching people walk along the top, which naturally they would tend to film. And I got the idea, and what I ended up doing was running my vertical antenna up through one of the 3 lone pine trees there on the top. So the farthest one towards the end of the trail, I set up right underneath it, ran the vertical whip right up into the tree, kind of leaning in this direction. The wind was very, very light out of this way. I used just the base of my Wolf River Coils tripod, no legs, just the base, and was able to weave both the coax and the whip through the molly in my backpack in such a way that I could meet at one spot, connect it with just the base part of the Wolf River Coils tripod, and use the backpack kind of as a foot, so that the the connector comes up to the bottom, so I couldn't really sit that on the ground. So I used the backpack as a foot and a way to lift the connector about that high up above the ground, and then I could just lean it in the tree. And I just attached 3 of my 11-foot radials to it and threw those over the edge of the cliff that was that far to my to my north, and they laid on the ground down there. And that was how I was able to get the antenna deployed. The radio, I was able to slide underneath the root system. So the tree had been kind of washed out a little bit underneath it, and there were some roots coming out from the base that would have this much space underneath them, and I was able to slide the radio underneath there. So it's taking up no extra space, and someone could actually walk through and step on that root right above the radio and still be able to move through, and it would have been fine. Now, there were branches at that point that were too low. No one would do that. But just to illustrate the point, it's taking up no extra room. I'm sitting on a root and sitting there and working Morse code with my earphones on, so you can't hear anything and not even going to be distracted as you're going by. Though some were trying to figure out what the heck I was doing. But that was one of the cooler parts of that activation, is just figuring out how to get that done, without being what could be a significant danger to other hikers up there. And, one of those, you've just got to go up with a mindset that if I can't figure it out, if it doesn't work, I have to be ready to accept the fact that I'm just not going to get that activated, and that's okay. The experience of hiking up there to the top, going up with one of your kids, seeing that site, and hiking back down is a bucket list experience, and is super cool, whether you activate or not. So that's number 2, Zion National Park from the top of Angel's Landing. And that leads us to number 1, which is another kind of group of activations, anything that I've done at Grand Canyon National Park. Whether I activate from the rim, like I did in one of my earliest activations in 2021, where I set up on Moran Point and watched the sunset over the course of 2 or 3 hours from right on the south rim of Grand Canyon. And that was a really cool experience. I was just getting portable enough at that time that I could leave the RV. Up until that point, I was dragging this whole RV to my activation locations. So it'd be from a campground or somewhere we'd pass while we're traveling, and we'd stop, and I'd use the rig to hold up my mast to put up my fan dipole. I'd run off the batteries of the RV, got 400 amp hours to work off of, all charged by solar panels. I thought that's how I was going to activate. And after 3 or 4 of those, I realized that was not the way I wanted to activate. I needed to get away from the RV. So after getting the Wolf River coils and my 15 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, I'm able to take my radio and all my equipment and put it in the truck and drive away. And at that point, I'm like, all right, I'm activating Grand Canyon. I don't want to activate Grand Canyon from a parking lot or a campsite or a picnic table or something like that. I want to be sitting there looking at Grand Canyon the entire time I'm activating. And that was really kind of, the impetus of what this whole channel has become. I wasn't on YouTube at the time, unfortunately, but the idea of seeking out that location and activating from there is kind of the idea that birthed this whole channel. And then, of course, we've got the 2 voyages down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. The first one of which was very cool because I just wasn't certain that the idea would work at all. And obviously you're investing a lot into an experience like that. But again, it's one of those bucket list experiences. Even if the whole radio thing's a total failure, you still got to hike to the bottom of Grand Canyon. I just carried 10 pounds of gear that I didn't need. Would have been the bummer. But I was able to get down there, and it worked. And it was just an awesome time. It was quite the feeling, just turning on the radio, not knowing if you're going to hear anybody, and then hear someone, another POTA activator, and make a contact with them. And they're not even the direction I thought it was going to be. The canyon's running this way, so I thought my contacts would all be in this direction, but the contact I made was actually in this direction, going straight up and over the north rim. And when I made that contact, I think it was actually to snow cones in Washington, I knew I was in business. And in fact, I got 39 contacts before my battery gave out. and I was done there. And that was very cool, including 2 contacts that were 2,000 miles away. The second time I went down to the bottom, I found a way to drive down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon from Peach Springs, Arizona, much farther to the west, downriver. And, that's a different experience in and of itself. And because I'm driving, I can take a lot of extra equipment. I can take more batteries down. I can take different antennas down. And I took my quarter wave vertical down, thinking that was just a ridiculous idea, because everything I'd heard said that vertical antennas have lower angles of departure. And so, how would that work? I had to go with an Invis antenna. But in fact, it worked fantastic, and I made over 90 contacts from the bottom of Grand Canyon that time, including others that were all the way across the country. From an experiential standpoint, those activations were amazing. From a scientific standpoint, there were really fun lessons to learn there, and that is why those operations sit number 1 on my list, and I'm probably not done there yet. So there you have it, my top 10 most fabulous operating locations in the continental United States. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Mike, Kilo Echo 0, Victor India Mike. This the Travelin' Ham. See you next time.